Imagine encountering two creatures about 1 meter tall, wearing tight metallic suits, diagonal eyes, and faces marked by terrifying scars. That was exactly what Tiago Machado, a 19-year-old young man, faced on a February morning in 1969. The encounter ended unexpectedly. A paralyzing ray fired by one of them, and the sudden disappearance of the strange object that left marks on the ground. Want to know how it all happened? Then get ready, because this story will stir your curiosity and give you goosebumps. But before we begin, it's important to mention that if you've ever seen something scary or experienced an abduction, don't hesitate to share it in the comments, because I believe in your story. Your experience could be the next to inspire others. We would be happy to hear from you. On the quiet morning of February 6, 1969, Tiago Machado, then 19 years old, was abruptly awakened by his mother. It was around 7 o'clock, and the Pinheiro neighborhood was bustling. Several people are seeing a flying saucer on the street, his mother alerted him urgently. Living just 12 kilometers from the Brazilian Air Force Base, FAB, Tiago thought, it might be something common, like a helicopter or an experimental balloon. Nonetheless, his curiosity got the better of him. He quickly got up and went outside to check what was happening. Once outside, Tiago encountered several people looking up at the sky. There was a strange object moving peculiarly, slowly ascending and descending. The scene was intriguing, and the silence accompanying the object's movement only added to the mystery. Determined to better understand what he was seeing, Tiago ran to grab a pair of binoculars from home. When he returned, the object was no longer in the sky, but had landed on a nearby plot of land belonging to the Institute of Zootechnics. Without a second thought, Tiago decided he needed to approach it to see it up close. Tiago's initial courage soon gave way to fear as he realized the solitude of his endeavor. Halfway there, he stopped and decided to seek help. Francisco, his friend and the Institute's gatekeeper, lived near the location and seemed like the best option. Tiago went to him and explained what was happening. Intrigued, Francisco agreed to accompany him. The two friends faced the tall vegetation surrounding the Institute's grounds. The distance was considerable, and they relied on the help of neighbors who shouted from afar, pointing in the right direction. However, as they got closer, they decided to split up to cover more ground. Tiago followed a higher trail, while Francisco took a lower path. After walking through the dense underbrush, Tiago finally spotted the object. About 10 meters away, he stopped, incredulous at the sight. The object looked like two inverted saucers, stuck together. There was no noise nor any heat emission. It had an elegant design and at the same time was completely strange. For about 3 minutes, Tiago watched. He was hypnotized by the beauty of the object. But the moment was interrupted when a hatch opened. Two small beings, approximately 1 meter tall, emerged from it. The beings were unlike anything Tiago had ever seen. They wore body-hugging outfits that appeared metallic, with folds resembling accordion-like fabrics. Their helmets only allowed their faces to be seen, which were strange and marked by scars. Their eyes, arranged diagonally, gave them an even more terrifying appearance. The two beings floated down to the ground and walked toward Tiago. Despite his fear, Tiago tried to stay calm. He asked where they came from, but the beings only gestured with their hands and spoke in an incomprehensible language. Nervous, Tiago resorted to a habit he had in anxious situations. He took a cigarette out of his pocket and began to smoke. To his surprise, the being seemed curious about the gesture. Tiago, mixing courage with an attempt at interaction, threw the pack of cigarettes to the ground as an offering. The beings picked up the pack without directly touching it, using some kind of ability or tool that Tiago couldn't identify. Meanwhile, He noticed that their presence still made them cautious. To mark the spot in case something happened to him, Tiago took the binoculars from his neck and placed them on the ground. This gesture, however, scared the beings, who immediately retreated. Tiago picked up the binoculars again, and the beings began to advance toward him once more. He repeated the movement, and once again, the beings backed away. Gathering his courage, Tiago asked the beings to leave some proof of their visit so he could convince other people. At that moment, the population that had stayed away began to approach, throwing stones and pieces of wood toward the object. The beings, visibly alarmed, reacted. One of them held a strange device resembling a weapon. In a swift motion, it fired. A ray in Tiago's direction, hitting him in the leg. The impact immediately paralyzed him, and he fell to the ground. As Tiago tried to move, the object began to take off. Within seconds, it disappeared into the sky, leaving behind only marks on the ground and an atmosphere of mystery. Tiago was rushed to the Santa Casa hospital in Pirassununga. There, he was attended by Dr. Henrique Reis, who showed skepticism regarding the story. However, before he could be released, FAB military personnel arrived at the hospital. They demanded that Tiago be taken seriously and subsequently took him to Rio de Janeiro for more detailed treatment. During the time he was in military custody, Tiago was interrogated and subjected to examinations. After the case lost its momentum, he was taken back to his home. Meanwhile, the land where the object had landed was sealed off by the FAB. Clear marks from the landing gears remained visible for days. The FAB collected soil samples, but never officially disclosed what they found. Despite the traumatic experience, Tiago never stopped telling his story. His words were corroborated by several witnesses who had seen the object in the sky that morning. The case of Tiago Machado remains one of the most mysterious episodes in Brazilian ufology.